Hello? It's me? Brought the shroud as you asked, but I'm scared.
Do not fear me. You've done well.
I'm not scared of you. I'm scared for you. Anyone finds out what you've been doing.
You have played your part, my instrument. I will save you. I will save you all.
If you've played the main Assassin's Creed titles and found yourself invested in the super confusing story both by design and error, then you're likely aware of the seemingly main antagonist, Juno. Juno used to have a strong presence in the modern day of Assassin's Creed games, as the modern day typically focused on that storyline. However, along came a prime example of Ubisoft's intelligent decision making, as they announced that they would not continue Juno's story in the games, but instead in comics. Fucking comics, I know. I'll spare you the rant because we actually have a point to get to in this video. So they carried Juno's arc into the comics, and recently enough, they finished that arc. So I'm going to explain in this video how Juno died. So if you absolutely can't stand Assassin's Creed's transmedia like me, then stick around and you'll know what happened to Juno. So by the end of Syndicate, we know that Abstergo were cloning the Isu through the Phoenix Project, through the study of the body of the sage John Standish and various pieces of Eden, notably the Shroud. So here's what's going on. So by 2015, Juno had contacted the Templars, proposing an alliance, arguing that the alliance would be in their best interests considering that they shared aligned goals of a new world order, if you will. Juno started using Violet DaCosta and Dr. Alvaro Grammatica's Phoenix Project to use the Shroud and create an EC body for Juno to use to escape the Grey and become resurrected. For those who don't know what the Grey is essentially a virtual afterlife realm where consciousnesses can live after the death of their bodies as artificial intelligences. In theory, Subject 16, Clay Kazmarek, and the infamous Subject 17, Desmond Miles, are chilling out smoking some fat gret and necking endless pints of piss water somewhere in there, because let's face it, they're not exactly doing anything else. Anyway, back to it. As Juno's plans progressed, the instruments of the First Will set out to retrieve the Koh-i-Noor, bringing Desmond's son Elijah with them. Elijah happened to be a sage, for those who don't know. The instruments invaded the laboratory of Dr. Grammatica, holding him hostage afterwards. In this period, Grammatica managed to extract Isu DNA from Elijah's bone marrow and used strands from the Shroud of Eden to accelerate the development of the Isu fetus, turning Juno's intended body into an adult Isu within the next 24 hours. Around this time, the assassins were racing to the facility located in the Australian desert to stop the impending resurrection of the Isu deity, and stop her fanatical acolytes from achieving global domination. Inside the labs, Elijah Miles and the instrument Richmond were trapped in a room. As Richmond attempted to unlock the door, Elijah told Richmond he remembered the day that he was taken from his mother, the day that Richmond killed her, vowing to take revenge on the instruments. Elijah stabbed him in the neck with a screwdriver, taking the Koh-i-Noor. While her body matured, Consus, an Isu who transferred his consciousness into the Shroud of Eden, warned Juno that she would not win, and that the American assassin Charlotte de la Cruz would stop her. Juno essentially scoffed at this, telling Consus that his sense of humour hadn't dulled. Consus stated that Charlotte possessed a stronger will than Juno, and that would ultimately be why she'd lose. Despite all of Juno's supposed advantages, as Juno's body matured enough to survive without the Shroud, Consus could no longer communicate with her. In order to get in, the assassins sent Otso Berg, who was now for some reason on their side, to the entrance in the thick of the sandstorm. At the entrance, Violet DaCosta was waiting with many armed instruments of the First Will. Jasdeep Dharmi stepped forward to face Berg, but after a brief discussion, he was assassinated by Galena Veronia with a sniper round to the head. At the rear entrance to the facility, assassins Kiyoshi Takakura and Aren Shoot Cunningham engaged in a firefight with the instruments, ultimately using a rocket launcher to eliminate a cluster of the cultists as they fought their way into the labs. At this time, Charlotte, despite struggling due to the sandstorm, managed to find a hidden hatch and used it to climb into the facility through air vents. As Juno's new body achieved full maturity, she told Grammatica about how disgusted she used to be with vocal cords, until she was without hers for millennia, before deciding to be let out of the machine that had incubated her. After this, Juno covered her body with a gown. At this point, Charlotte leaped from an air vent above Juno, attempting to air assassinate Juno as she clothed her new body. Juno managed to blast Charlotte with energy from her hands, suspending her in the air with the power. Elijah then assisted by approaching Charlotte while carrying the Koh-i-Noor, putting the artifact to Charlotte's hand. Energy then filled the room with a bright light. Charlotte used the energy to shield her assassin allies within the facility by guiding them all away from the instruments and towards the lab, with walls made of energy. Juno then knocked the diamond from Charlotte's hand as the assassins rushed into the lab. Juno made short work of the assassins who entered the room, killing the assassins Aren and Kiyoshi, with an energy beam. Juno then grabbed Charlotte by the hair. Juno then looked up to see Constance staring back at her. Juno mocked her new body by stating that it was fresh, but her heart was as dead as the moon. Suddenly everything changed, and Charlotte and the assassins were all alive again. Juno was standing talking to a coffee cup. Charlotte had been channeling an illusion into Juno's mind all this time. Juno became enraged, blasting energy at the imaginary Constance. This began to damage the ceiling, which began to collapse in on itself, with Dr. Grammatica being killed by falling debris. Eventually, Juno realised that it was an illusion and reached out to Elijah to pass her the Koh-i-Noor. At this point, Juno was stabbed in the throat by a hidden blade from behind. Charlotte de la Cruz had dealt a killing blow. Elijah then vowed that Aita was a ghost in the wind, and that this lineage ends here. He then climbed a rope and escaped out of an air vent, leaving Charlotte and the assassins behind. After this, the remaining assassins and Berg ran out of the labs as it slowly collapsed around them. As they left, Violet and the instruments were there in waiting. Despite being outnumbered, Berg mocked Violet as Templar special forces surrounded the area. He took Violet's gun and shot her in the chest, telling her that before she died, she should enjoy one final show. Then Berg took out a remote detonator and clicked it. The lab exploded, seemingly with Charlotte and the body of Juno still inside. As the explosion erupted, in the distance, Elijah walked into the desert, still clutching the Koh-i-Noor. And that is how Juno died. A bit confusing, but that's typically what you'd expect from an Assassin's Creed story to be these days. I truly do believe that it's a shame that this occurred in a comic and not a game, because this could have made a good ending to the franchise's main story. Either way, we now know for certain that Juno's arc has ended. Now, I apologise if my explanation was a bit wank. I had a lot of digging to do to fill the blanks on the wiki and things like that, because the comics simply aren't for me, and I didn't see anybody else lining up to make a video about this. I'll link every page I use in the description if you want further clarity on certain aspects, including the build-up and things like that. But let me know what you think. Do you think that this was a fitting ending to Juno's story, or do you think that it was a little bit underdone because it was in a comic and not a main game? Either way, thank you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you've got any more lore video suggestion ideas, then pop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Be sure to go ahead and join our community Discord, there'll be a link in the description. And be sure to go ahead and follow me on Twitter as well, I would really appreciate that. Anyways, I will see you all... I'll see you all very soon with another video at some point.